Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Robyn and I live here on the south coast of New South Wales with my partner and our two cats, and we have just finished up our first year flower farming here on the property. We have around half an acre here where we kind of grow more so on a quarter of an acre, and we have multiple different gardens around the property. One which was more of a cottage garden where I also grow like veggies and herbs as well as flowers, and then I have a separate really dedicated flower farm area where I grow the bulk of my flowers. I am really passionate about growing plants and I really wanted to have a farm for as long as I can remember. I actually have a background in environmental science where I did my PhD looking at land management, specifically on mining sites up at Cape York, Queensland, Australia. So I have a little bit more of a science background, soil science and large scale land management. And I feel like I have applied a lot of that knowledge to my backyard to start this backyard cut flower farm. But other than the knowledge that I've gained throughout my PhD on how to actually work with the land and work with soil and water, I don't particularly have a farming background, nor do I have a floristry background. So this is all self-taught, and I've just learned a lot from YouTube and reading books and finding inspiration from a lot of people here online. We also live on a rented property here, so there are some limitations in terms of the infrastructure that I can install here. We also know this isn't going to be our forever home, so I've tried to kind of create the farm in terms of adding a little bit more temporary structures and infrastructure, and that includes like the irrigation that I've added in, really minimizing what money we've spent on amendments and like mulch and things like that, and trying to follow really simple gardening practices and maintaining organic principles throughout the flower farm. Gardening and flower farming alongside nature is also a really big part of what I want to do. So I'm not really a mass production flower farm. One day I would love to expand, but yeah, we are really small, but I have tried to pack in flowers as much as I can into the space that I have. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about the profitability side of flowers and what flowers have actually been the most profitable for me in a backyard cut flower setting. Again, this is just my experience for my first year cut flower farming. I'm sure this is going to change and evolve as the years go on, but I think it's cool to kind of look back to see what was profitable and my experience of first year flower farming, and then see how that changes as we progress. So this is going to be part one of this series of talking about my experience as a first year cut flower farmer. So there will be extra videos to this series, including a complete financial review of how we did, have I actually liked flower farming, and some of my favorite varieties that I've grown, combinations of flowers, and that kind of thing. So if you do have anything that you would like me to chat about, do leave a comment in the comment section and I can include that in one of the videos. But for today's video, we're just going to be talking about what flowers have been most profitable. And I have my laptop here of a list of flowers that I'm going to chat through, and I'm going to try and order these from most profitable to least profitable, even though all of these that I am talking about are in the most profitable list. I have a few separate ones that weren't exactly profitable this year but have a lot of potential to be profitable either next year or the year after, and also just a few flowers that I won't be growing again that weren't profitable at all for me, and yeah, that I'm definitely not going to grow again. I also wanted to just start out by talking about what profitable means for me as a micro cut flower farm, because there's so many different ways that you can measure profitability. And again, I'm sure this is going to change as we grow as a business and expand our growing space. But for now, what I'm really looking at is what flowers produced a decent amount for me. Because we are so small, I'm looking for a lot of plants that are going to provide me a lot of good quality stems in a fairly small area. as well as flowers that I can harvest kind of all at once. So I get a really good flush of flowers so that when I do go to the markets, I have a good range to provide my customers with, and I can kind of add more available bunches to my website, as well as how much time went into actually growing the plants and how much kind of effort it needs, and also then how much can I actually sell the stem for when I'm putting the stem into bouquets to kind of like add up to my usual $20 limit, which is what I usually sell and bring to the markets, and then I do have higher value products on my website as well for larger bouquets there. And the last thing that I look for in a lot of these flowers is whether I can use them for more than one area in the business. So whether I can dry the flowers, whether I can press the flowers, or try and make a little bit more money out of the plant, like whether I can sell seeds from it or tubers. And again, this is because we are such a small operation right now. We have a really limited space. I'm using all hand tools, and sometimes I do need extra ways to make money from the flowers rather than actually just the fresh flower itself. So I hope that kind of makes sense, but I would love to know what you look for when you're looking at whether a flower is profitable for your business or not. But that was just an overview on what I look for and kind of a justification of why all of these flowers are on the list. Also, make sure to grab a cup of tea or coffee for this video. It is a sit down video. I will be adding some pictures and videos in over to this, but I would definitely recommend having a drink or a snack throughout this video. But let's get into all of these flowers that I have here. Number one, I didn't even have to think about this. I knew exactly what my most profitable flower was going to be when I was putting this video together, and that is Statice. It has been such an amazing flower for me to grow as a backyard cut flower farmer, and I would highly recommend growing these if you are interested in starting a flower farm, or you have an area in your backyard that you would kind of like to trial out growing cut flowers and just see how you go. And the main reason for this is because they have such good value, either fresh or dried, or in the Christmas ornaments that I was making. So I make multiple products from Statice. I use them as fresh flowers, and honestly you only need a few that I usually use to surround a bouquet that I'm making to kind of hold everything in place. I also make $15 dried bunches. I make $5 mini bunches, and these sell really well. The $5 mini bunches, it sounds like they are pretty cheap, but actually they are the stems that are the leftovers from anything else that I use as fresh or the larger dried bouquets. With Statice, you usually get one long stem, but sometimes there will be a few little stems that come out of that that I do need to break off when I'm using it in an arrangement, because usually they're too far down on the stem. But I do save all of those and I use those in my mini bouquets, and I will also dry the whole thing and then prick off the little flower bits of the Statice and then add them to my Christmas ornaments. I have only ever really had one or maybe 1.5 rows of Statice, and I have always had such a good harvest. I got around 2 or 3 really good flushes off the plants. By that time, some of the weeds had overtaken them, and we had also had just really weird weather like flooding and then really dry weather, and the plants just were really sad. So I've taken them out and I will replant and sow some more probably when the weather starts to cool down a little bit. I also really like these because they bloom in winter where we are. They bloomed kind of late winter, and the stems were really good quality. If you're looking for ones to grow, it does matter like what they're called, but because there are quite a few varieties of Statice out there, but I'd recommend choosing a really deep purple, an apricot, and a white. As long as you've got kind of those 3, you'll be able to make some really stunning dried bouquets, or you can kind of pair up the colors for whatever your customers want. One thing though with Statice, because they're such a beautiful plant and the color is so vibrant in particularly the purples, I have had a lot of people say that they're actually dyed. So if you do have that problem as well, maybe just write up a few signs to let people know and inform people that it's actually a natural color and they last for quite a long time. I have some dried Statice that are at least a year and a half old, and they look no different, particularly the purples, to how they did at the start. So as long as you're just keeping all of your dried flowers in like a container that's out of the dark and out of any humidity, they should hold their color. I'm going to try and get through this list a little bit more quicker now, but the next one that I have on my list is Strawflowers again, and this is pretty much the exact same reasons as Statice, so I won't go too much into detail, but this is just really important for me because we are such a small flower farm that I do have other dried flowers, and Strawflowers are another one that dry perfectly fine and that I've used in a lot of my Christmas decorations as well. I find that you can even just use Strawflowers as focal flowers, which is what I've been doing in my bouquets, particularly the first few flushes of the flowers that come up, because they are a cut and come again. The first flowers are often a little bit larger, so I've been using a lot of these as focal flowers, and particularly the yellows look really stunning. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Strawflowers, and just make sure that when you're planting them to get the tall variety rather than the really short Strawflowers, unless you're only just using them for the flower heads, which is primarily what I do for dried flowers. But I will often just harvest a bunch of Strawflowers when I'm making bouquets, make a lot of bouquets to go to the markets or to my local garden centre. And then any that don't sell, they last a long time, so I can just prick them off and then dry them and then use them for later projects down the line. The next flower that is on my list is Feverfew, and I have a little bit here in with one of my roses. I absolutely adore Feverfew, and this is mainly on the list because of the ease of actually starting these plants and having a lot of plants basically for free. So I have been propagating Feverfew from 1 or 2 plants that I had that I did start from seed, and it is really simple to propagate Feverfew. I'll leave a link in the description of where I included this in a video, but yeah, I have a full row of this now, or 2 rows actually, and I have been putting it pretty much in any bouquet. It is my favorite filler to use, therefore it's got to be on my most profitable list, because a lot of the bouquets that don't have Feverfew are the last to go. So yeah, I always add this in, and usually I'm pricing it at like $1 to $1.50 a stem. And same with the Strawflowers and the Statice. I should have mentioned I price those also around $1 a stem, so technically they're not making a lot of money per stem, but because I'm adding them into pretty much every bouquet, it does add up and actually ends up being a lot more than some of the higher priced per stem flowers, if that makes sense. So yeah, Feverfew is definitely one, and I will always grow this. And I love all the Feverfew, but I just have the single white Feverfew. It looks like little daisies and they last incredibly long in water. I have tried drying it. It isn't my favorite dried, so I think I'm just going to stick to it fresh. But yeah, definitely one that you need in your garden, and I think all flower farmers need this plant in their garden. Number 4 is Zinnias, and of course this is going to be on the list. This is one of the summer flowers that I grow, and I actually have some that are finally coming into bloom now, so they're going to go into this week's bouquets. Specifically out of the Zinnias, I want to say that the Benary's Giant variety are the most profitable, because you can price these at $2 to even $3 per stem for the larger size flowers. They look beautiful as focal flowers. My favorite ones are definitely the salmon colors. They look so beautiful. And those paired with a few of the smaller Queen Lime variety of Zinnias look so beautiful in an arrangement. So yeah, I had to include Zinnias on this. They're also a cut and come again flower, so for my small space I can get a lot of stems off the one plant, and they just last so well in water. The Benary's Giant definitely has a little bit more disease resistance than some of the other Zinnias I've grown, and overall the stems are much stronger and longer as well. Number 5 is Dahlias, and this isn't really because they are a high priced flower per stem, I suppose. Like you can price these anywhere from, I would say, $3 to $5 for the varieties that I grow. It's not necessarily just because of that, it's also because I can make money from these from dividing the tubers. And also I've been selling starts of these by taking cuttings from the tubers at my local markets. So I've been selling these for anywhere between $10 and $15. They've been selling really well. And you just want to make sure if you do this to at least have a photo of what the flower looks like. That's going to bring your customers in, and I've been finding that's working well for me. I personally don't have a lot of experience with dahlias, so I'm still learning learning how to grow these well. But I usually would add maybe 2 to 3 per bouquet of the $20 bouquets, and that was enough for the bouquets that I was selling. They looked beautiful. They didn't really last as long as some of the other flowers, but I think just because dahlias are so popular, you really have to have them in your garden or flower farm because they're just rising and rising in popularity. And I know a lot of flower farmers are trying to earn a little bit extra money either from selling seedlings or from propagating the tubers. So I'm gonna jump on that train as well next year when I'm going to be dividing all of the tubers that I have. But yeah, I really do think they're a great investment, and I really started out with a few, and I have about 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, soon to be 5 and maybe 6 rows of dahlias, depending on how many seedlings I have left over. So it's a really great crop to gradually grow more each year, and you don't have to invest hundreds and hundreds of dollars in the initial stages. There's always gardeners wanting dahlias, so I know that there is like a lot of trading going on between gardeners, which I think is great and is something I would love to do as well. So yeah, all round really good investment, and they've been great for me. Number 6 is jonquils. This is not a really common flower I feel a lot of flower farmers talking about, but this really fills in the part of the year where I don't have a lot of flowers, and I use these as a focal flower. And for me, they're profitable a lot because I can plant them. They're going to double or triple as they grow each year. And I also don't lose out on any space of these because I plant these throughout the existing landscape and not really in the flower farm or dedicated flower farm area. I plant these just in the garden beds that I have around the house, in the cottage garden, around different trees, and they're just really a set and forget type of flower that I don't need to think about, really fertilize that much, and I always really get a good harvest of these. They last a long time in water, they look so beautiful, they smell wonderful. Customers around me really do enjoy them. I think it reminds them a lot of childhood, or maybe their grandparents had them in their yard, and yeah, I find they sell really well around me. So they're on my list and they've done really well for me. I'll usually sell these around $2 a stem, and I usually add these to jam jar posies, which a lot of people seem to like in the winter months, just to add a little bit of color and scent to their house. And yeah, they've done really well. So yeah, they're definitely on my list for a good reason. Number 7 is anemones, and this was a complete surprise to me. I didn't really think they were going to be on my most profitable list, but they grew so well in my climate. I hadn't had a lot of luck with these the year before, and I think that was just because it was so wet that year. We had so much rain, and I don't think they really enjoyed that, but they did amazing this year. Way better than the ranunculus, which we'll get to. I'll talk about that later. But yeah, these were definitely really profitable, mainly also because I didn't pay very much for them. I purchased about a pack of 80 of these for $28, and then I got an additional 50 with a bunch of different bulbs, which I got about 400 bulbs for, again, another $28, but it would have probably been about $5 to $10 for the actual anemones, the 50 anemones that came with those. I planted all anemones that were from the poppy collection, and they did so well. I did them in both arrangements, like like my $20 arrangements, as well as jam jar posies, because a lot of the first few stems or ones that you'll get after your first flush are pretty short, so they work really well in jam jar posies, and they just looked absolutely beautiful. I think next year I'm going to maybe get a collection like this because I really loved having all different rainbow colors, but the ones that really did well were the deep purple ones and a few of the red ones as well. I really loved the white ones with the green center, so I personally want to grow those, but yeah, the deep purple ones, they did so well and they lasted quite a long time in water. I think anemones are a little bit easier to grow than ranunculus, mainly because they just don't, or they're not affected by disease as much, so I really loved that. And they're nice early flowering varieties in early spring. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend growing these. And I was selling these from $2 to $3 a stem, mainly $2, particularly for a lot of the shorter ones. But yeah, they're a really great variety in my opinion. And I also grew them so close together and they didn't mind at all. So that was another bonus for me because I just had one bed of them and I harvested so many stems out of that area. It was amazing. Number 8 is stock, and this flower I was blown away by how beautiful it was. It was actually my very first year growing stock, and yeah, I'm definitely going to grow it again. I think it really likes our climate. We're a very like Mediterranean climate, I suppose, where we don't really have very cold nights and we don't have really hot days either because we're so close to the coast. And I think that's what stock really likes. It can struggle when you do get those really high day temperatures and then cold nights. So I think our climate is really perfect for growing stock. And it was also such an easy plant to start from seed as well. A lot of flowers can be difficult because the seeds can be so small, but I find with stock flowers, they're quite large in comparison to a lot of other flower seeds, so they're pretty easy to start from seed. I had really great germination rate, and yeah, overall the plants were pretty simple to grow. I suppose the only negatives is that you do usually only get the one stem of stock. I was growing the column variety of stock and it's known for just the one stem that you get. So in hindsight, next time or next year I'm going to be planting more of these but closer together to ensure that I just get more stems in a smaller area rather than space them out how I did. But yeah, my favorites were anything that was kind of pale like violet or any of the purples. The pinks were okay, but they just didn't sell as well as whenever I had a purple in there. And I think I might even do selective seeding next time where you can pick out what the doubles are going to be when you sow your seeds. I didn't really do that this year, so I had some singles rather than just doubles. So yeah, next year we're going to play it a little bit different, and I am definitely going to be planting lots more next year. The next one, I had to throw this in here as number 9, and this is a very general one, but it's something that you do need in bouquets, and I'm kind of cheating with this one because I'm going to list multiples, but that is just some native foliage. I have some beautiful plants on the property that I've been using as foliage, and the ones that have done well include bottle brush leaves or the unopened actual bottle brush flowers. They look really beautiful. Leptospermum, both Starry Night and Cardwell have done amazing, and the lemon tea tree. Those are my favorites for kind of more native looking foliage. You really don't need a lot of stems of these. They last a long time in water, and particularly the Starry Night, it always sells. You only need about like 3 stems to kind of surround a bouquet, but it looks so beautiful. The deep burgundy foliage of that plant just really pops, and I am personally in love with it. I love the plant so much, so I really had to include this because it is a large component of putting bouquets together. And although it's not really a flower, I had to include it in my list because they just really make the bouquets look amazing. So yeah, I had to include that one. And then number 10 is Cosmos. And this is down towards the bottom of the profitable list, still profitable, but I just have a few things that I don't love about Cosmos. One is that the plants just get too tall and too crazy, and I just can't deal with it. So when I don't deal with it, it just goes even more crazy and hard to deal with, and then it just becomes a really big job for me to actually remove the plants out and deal with them. So that's on me. That's not really related to the plant. I get it. I'm sorry, Cosmos, but yeah, I just find they are very difficult to work with, but people do love them. I always get comments about, oh, that's the Cosmos. Oh, the Cosmos looks so beautiful in those bouquets, even though it's like there's a 1 or 2 stems of the Cosmos. It's a flower that people recognize, and therefore I will grow it, and it does have a place in the flower farm. But if you are a micro or a small cut flower farm like myself, just grow like a few plants. That's all you need. You don't need a full bed of Cosmos. I'm telling you that now. Robyn, listen for next year. You do not need that at all. Maybe just a few plants. So that's what I'm going to do next year. But yeah, I had to include it because people love them, and they do make the bouquets look very whimsical and pretty and beautiful. So yeah, I do like the flowers. Right, this video is getting very long, I know, but I'm going to talk through just a few flowers that weren't really profitable this year but do have a lot of potential for me. One of them, Ranunculus. All I'm going to really say about this is they just did not do well this year, whether it was my soil or just the weather. We've had really just humid weather this year, and they ended up getting powdery mildew, and yeah, I didn't harvest hardly any of the Ranunculus, so I probably broke even on those. But the year before growing them, I had a beautiful harvest and they were absolutely stunning. So I'm a little unsure about them. I will definitely plant them and give them a go next year again, but I might even just start them a little bit earlier than I did. Yeah, I'm just going to trial with Ranunculus and see how I go. Another one I have on here is Snapdragons. Now, they did make me money and they were definitely beautiful, but I want to be a little bit more selective in the varieties that I'm going to be growing, mainly just focus on growing the Costa variety. I did a few different ones this year, and yeah, I need to go with just the Costa because they have really strong stems and they are grown for cut flowers. So yeah, I need to stick with that variety and yeah, just start them a little bit earlier because I started them too late this year. The next one is cornflowers, and this is specifically the blue cornflower, mainly because I use them in like rainbow bunches because they have that blue, deep blue color. I planted some more of the pink and maroon colors. I'm not going to do that next year. I'm just going to grow the blue and maybe just grow 3 plants. That's really all you need because I'm rarely harvesting and adding more than 3, maybe 5 of the cornflower stems into arrangements. So yeah, I'm just going to limit this, but they do have also potential for me to dry them and add them into my bath salts. So that's another thing I'm going to consider because I have been drying a few of these. So yeah, there's work I can do on cornflowers. I just need to figure out what's going to work for me. The next one is yarrow. I think this has a major potential, and I would love to have a bed solely that is just yarrow. Right now I have it planted around the garden, just in different garden beds, and that's not really working out for me. So I just need to have a dedicated bed for yarrow. The thing is, I'm not going to be able to grow anything else in that bed. So I need to create an area in the garden that can just be yarrow and not worry about it. That's the only thing why it's holding me back a little bit, but the stems are really beautiful, and yeah, I would love to dry it as well. Another one that has great potential is Sweet William. That's because I've only just planted it and I am getting a little bit of a harvest right now, and from what I am harvesting, I am loving it. I'm loving it so much. I love the flowers. They last so long. They're so easy to harvest. It takes no time at all. And yeah, I just love Sweet William. I've planted the Summertime Mix and Herald of Spring. Both really like them. They've worked really well for me. And why they're on here as more like potential flowers is that you get a better harvest or more stronger harvest in the second year because they are perennial. So I did plant these in spring, so hopefully next year we should get a good harvest of those. And another one here that might be surprising to people, but I've added it here because I haven't really grown it here yet, and that is sunflowers. And I mean, I have grown sunflowers here, but not really on a mass scale. So I'm only just starting to get a first harvest of sunflowers, and I'm not too sure how they're going to go, just because we have a lot of birds around and I need to make sure that I'm actually going to get flowers. So they have potential to be very, very profitable, but we shall see over the next few weeks. There's only about 3 flowers that I'm not going to grow again. One of those is tulips. I've already really kind of spoken about this, but we're just not cold enough for tulips here. They don't do well at all. They didn't really grow like at all. So yeah, I'm not going to grow tulips. We also have very, very clay soil, which they don't like. So if I was to ever grow tulips, I would grow them in crates, but they're off my list. I would never make any money with tulips. They're also just so expensive to buy in Australia, unless you're buying like thousands and thousands, and I'm not going to be buying thousands and thousands. So I would much rather just go to Floriyard and enjoy the tulips there rather than growing them in my backyard. But if you can grow tulips, I am envious because I do love them. Another one I'm not going to grow is pink cornflowers. I chatted about this earlier. They're just not worth it. I have so many other pink flowers that I can use, like yarrow and linaria, things like that, as like little filler flowers. So yeah, I'm not going to be growing this one again. Yeah, there's not too much to say. They can just become a really messy plant, and while the pink flowers are beautiful, I just find the blue way more profitable. So I'm not going to be growing those again. And the last one on my list is larkspur. I am going to grow it, but not to the extent that I did this year. I'm maybe only going to grow like 5 or 6 plants, because I only really used sometimes just 1 or 2 stems in an arrangement. I would only grow this on a larger scale if I was selling to florists or doing weddings or something like that. But because I'm not doing that, I don't really need a lot, and they are such beautiful flowers, but they can tend to get a little bit messy, and I just got way too overwhelmed with them. So yeah, I'm not going to be growing too much larkspur next year, even though they are super pretty. But yeah, I just don't need that much for the bouquets that I'm producing right now. Okay, that was a lot of information, and I have chatted for quite a while now. Thank you so much if you have made it this far in the video. I hope some of this was useful to you, and if not, it's going to be useful for me to look back upon, and I am super excited to do another video like this next year to see how my second year flower farming has gone in terms of what's been profitable and not. I am really excited to keep making some of these videos and just chatting about like reviewing the year, particularly like how much we actually made, because I haven't figured that out yet, but I am super excited to do the math for that and just get some final tallies. And I really want to create these videos as more of a resource to you. So if you are even just remotely thinking about starting a flower farm, hopefully this is going to be useful knowledge for you. And if not, then I am glad you've stuck around for a chat, and I hope you have been enjoying your drink and your snack. Maybe go pop the kettle on again, because I'm sure your cup of tea or coffee has got cold now. But yeah, I am so thankful for you for watching this far in the video. If you'd like to see more, make sure you subscribe to the channel and like this video. It really does help me out a lot and is completely free for you. I've also got a coffee page if you want to buy me a coffee. I'll link in the description box if you would like to tip me and pay for my chai lattes and coffees that I need to get through doing these videos. And I do have a Patreon where I offer extra content and extra little perks over there if you want to check that out as well. And lastly, you can follow me over on Instagram at The Nature Patch or at The Patch in Bloom, where I share all of my flower farming content. And I've also got a website, thepatchinbloom.com.au, if you would like to purchase some fresh flowers in the area. Or I do have other botanical inspired gifts on there as well that I can post to anywhere in Australia. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are in the world, and until my next one, happy gardening everyone.